especially when you try pissing off God a few more times than you
Yeah.
need to. But what were we talking about
We
before
were
the?
talking about Fred and and about
Oh,
how
the
finally,
warlord. Yes.
about how the Overlord is dead, and therefore, my new motto is no Fred, no fret, and everything. I feel that everything that's associated with death. Uh, I mean, I'm not saying we're over revelations or not, but basically, uh, I everything that death stands for with the death of Fred is now irrelevant. So worry, anxiety, mortality, disease, all sorts of things, and it's the whole process is going to accelerate the more the more it hits people's subconscious that death is dead. So this is my truth that I feel God has like wanted me to spread for 50 years, but I couldn't do it because I was in the shadow of Fred. Fred, what the analogy I use about Fred is imagine an atom, and an atom has a proton at the center. And to me, that was my light. That was Dale's light. But basically, ever since 1947, there's been a circle or a globe of darkness around that light. And so the light's been growing more and more throughout my life, but it's only now after 70 years that the light has become strong enough to break through the Fred darkness. And that Fred darkness is the darkness of death.
It's weird because, a lot of people don't think about this, but you do have people in your life that are very much like those anchors. And, you know, you can have where you can fall into a void, you can fall into a black hole instead of actually healing because we tend to focus on one thing, right, which is death. The moment where they're no longer here and you can no longer talk to them, or you can no longer, it's all about all the things you can do instead of all of the things that the person, when they were physically in this realm, when they were physically in the same frequency as you were, of what they were able to give you, what they were able to offer
Right.
to you. It's just about perspective, right?
Well, it's also about what we were just talking about frequency and vibration. I mean, the frequency and the vibration of someone who dies has been moved to some different level that we can't access. And that doesn't mean that they aren't there or even that we can't contact them. I'm sure you've had dreams where people who you've known died, came back and talked with you and everything.
Uh, yeah.
But the frequency is really the thing that you have to concentrate on, and the frequency, the more you can concentrate that frequency on the divine, and whether it's through Jesus or the Bible or whatever you believe, I'm personally, I believe that Jesus sort of like, I have a spaceship, and I call Jesus the genius on my spaceship. And I say, trust in genius. And whenever I get like, sort of like overwhelmed or something, I say, trust in genius, because genius is Jesus on the ship. So, uh, but ultimately, the vibration of Jesus has never left the earth. And that vibration is getting stronger now as, and the power of darkness is disappearing, because I meant just a threat of I meant just giving my light to the world, my presence, and letting my presence be known to the world. Of course, this might sound delusional, but I've been diagnosed with delusion for 50 years, so I'll say it anyway. But just by my presence, life is getting better because of the vibration that I exude into the world. And the more people raise their vibration, the better the world's going to be. And
Yeah.
that's the saying. I meant I I'm a big follower of Sydney Banks, who's this guy who came up with this idea called the three principles, which is mind, consciousness, and thought. Basically, he says these are a compound that like define humanity. And in the first book of his basic treatise or doc, manifesto, he says, for mental stability, every person's life can be changed by one thought, but it can take you light years or seconds. But as soon as that one thought hits your head, your life will be changed forever. And that's
Very
basically what
accurate.
happened to me when I had my "I'm God" thought. It changed my life forever, and I'm happy it did.
I I learned this the hard way because I had a relationship with somebody that I was close with for about 6 years. And that basically fell apart at the beginning of this year. And I said to myself, I'm not ending a relationship. I am protecting myself because I know what my worth is and what I can offer in a relationship, what I can give another person that's a friend. And if the other person can precipitate and give that over, then what on earth am I doing? And I had that thought and idea in my head. And I closed that chapter and I said, you know what? It is what it is. I'm going to move on. And that's that. Fast forward to now, I have two friends of mine that we kind of, we had a break, we had on a hiatus for about a year and a half. And we rekindled a couple of months after this relationship ended with this friend. Not only is this relationship with these two a lot stronger, but it's better in the sense where I'm now starting to understand it's like you we put ourselves in this predicament of like, well, I can't get any better. Like I've been in here so long, like I'm just gonna deal with it as it is. But why put yourself in that predicament? Why not have some faith in whether it be God or Jesus or the universe and have that idea and analogy in your head? You deserve better. You are worth better. And it's not that you're closing yourself towards another person. You're seeing where your self worth and
Right.
your value is.
Exactly, and that's very true. And it's a progression because the higher you raise your vibration and the higher your awareness gets, the less people you're going to be able to relate to. Just because, higher consciousness is higher consciousness. And, most people don't even care about it. And those who do are doing, they're trying to do the work, but there's no guarantees. So uh, ultimately, it's just like, you just gotta like be your best self. And but it's also important to integrate the divine or the higher self into your everyday life. And this is actually what we talked about in my podcast yesterday, is integrating the inner child with the higher self, and really like being able to play both sides of the positive game against the negative.
Yeah, because we do morph throughout our lives, just like you have the caterpillar that creates a cocoon and eventually becomes a butterfly. In order for that caterpillar to get through that step by step process in order to come out of that cocoon as a butterfly. It needs to be able to get through all of those steps. It needs to first start off as a caterpillar, then go through the cocoon process, and then become a butterfly. You can't just have a butterfly magically out of thin air. You
Right.
know, there's a process to how everything works, and it's just because you've had this trauma or you've dealt with this inner part of yourself, it doesn't make you worse of an individual. Those are tools and things that you can use to better yourself and better your own life, not just for yourself, but also for the people that you surround yourself with. Can you imagine spending your whole life surrounded by toxic people? I don't know about you, but that sounds miserable.
Right. Well, talking about saying about the cocoon and the butterfly and everything is not only, I mean, everybody talks about how the butterfly has to struggle to get out of the cocoon. But what nobody seems to really talk about is the transformation within the cocoon that the
Hmm.
larvae is going through. I mean, I mean that transformation is like unbelievable. I mean, you can't conceive of what it is, but just like how much change and pain even the larvae has to go through, and then to get out of the cocoon to be able to like have wings strong enough to fly. I mean, the whole process, people say, oh, the cocoon, into the butterfly, but the whole thing is like a mortal struggle for the butterfly to become the butterfly is meant to be. And that's where how I feel about myself is that God's been guiding me for 50 years. And when I felt that I was going back to Dale, it was sort of like for 50 years I've been hanging on to God's knees and like just saying, hold me and like don't send me out of the nest. But now he's taken me out of the nest and I'm flying. I don't know whether I'm a duck, a eagle, or a butterfly, but
Or a pelican. Yeah.
right, or a pelican, but I'm out of the nest. And that's really where he's always wanted me to be, but it took me 50 years of self-development before I felt ready to go back to being the Dale that I always wanted to be.
We tend to get lost in this idea of comfort, right? This idea of constantly feeling that, oh, if we're comfortable, if everything's okay, then that's the best part about life. But what you do realize, especially from life experience, like for example, for yourself, if being 50 years, when you go through difficulties, when you go through those obstacles, when you go through those hardships, when you go through that pain, just like the process that's going on for that caterpillar in that cocoon in order to come out as the butterfly, like you mentioned, you need all of those things in order to get there to where you can proudly say, I am Dale, I am Dave. I'm no longer suppressed or contained anymore. I can now leave the nest. But to be fair, there are a lot of people, even spending 50 years, that they never leave the nest. They never leave the cocoon.
Right,
They stay the same, as we put it in English, the same rut, the same routine, the same schedule.
right. Well, you know that that's um that's a sad fact about reality, and it's true. But uh, motto of of Live Love is recovery is always an option, and the key word in that is option because every person has the option to become self-aware and better themselves. And it can be even more difficult with mental illness. Have you ever heard the term agnosia?
No.
Okay, anosognosia is a term taken from neurology for stroke victims who can't understand there's something wrong with their brain after having a stroke. So it's been transferred to psychiatry, and it's estimated that 60 to 80% of people with severe mental illness have this symptom. And the symptom is being unable to comprehend there's something wrong with your brain. So it's not denial. It's not as if you're saying there's nothing wrong with me. It, you're saying that, but it's coming from a completely different point of view because you just it's like the analogy I use: hold a book up to a blind person and try to have him read that book. You can't do it.
No.
And so, same thing with agnosia and mental illness. You tell someone they're psychotic, and they don't believe you. They don't have no idea what you're talking about. And actually, I was in agnosia from Dartmouth till my death of Dale. That I saw nothing wrong with saying I was God, and I was living sort of like I would like think myself into a god mindset and everything. But then when that explosion happened, it not only incinerated everything that Dale was except his body, but also ended the delusion, and so that for the first time I could really see how crazy and how sick I had been for the previous 10 years saying I was God.
Yeah. You don't you don't always see it. I mean, for me it's been learning disabilities my whole life. And I I struggled very hard with myself because, I didn't see that there was anything wrong with myself. I didn't understand why I perceived and was adapting to things completely differently. But then I finally broke into a point where I sat down with a social worker and I explained how I feel and I explained what was going on. And it's been a long process. I mean, I'm still dealing with it to this day. Do I have something that's different than most other people? 100%. Is it something that I got to deal with every single day and work towards? 100%. But it has allowed me to adapt and be able to be the best version of myself. It doesn't make me worse of an individual. It doesn't make me a bad person. It just means that that is something that I've had to learn to see and be able to understand that that is something that I have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. You're, you're 100% right. The healing is it's not mandatory. It's preferable. You can choose if you want it or not. And if you choose not to, well, nobody's stopping you. You don't have to. Nobody's
Well,
stopping you.
getting back to the coach, who I mentioned about, who's like made herself a professional bodybuilder at 44 and everything.
Which is
You know, she
incredible.
she she's I mean she's a very successful coach, and I worked with her and everything, but it's taken her. I've probably known her for probably about 6 7 years, but it's only now that she's realizing that all the coaching experience, all everything she's learned about coaching, she still needs therapy because coach, and that's why I say I'm a mentor instead of a coach, because I'm coming from lived experience, and I have insights into schizophrenia the professionals don't, because I've lived it. And I mean, I say this somewhat ironically, but also happily. I've been hospitalized 15 times and I've been discharged 15 times. So they never could keep me for good. And that's really like one of my big pluses. Plus graduating college, of course. That was like a big time too. But uh,
Yeah.
but but the fact that they every time I went to the hospital, I returned to sanity. It's just like I know that I'm legitimate, and I'm not crazy. I'm not psychotic, because if I was, then I never would have gotten out of those 15 hospitalizations, and I'd be on some back unit, in the state hospital probably. And
Right.
so, but ultimately, everybody has to look at their own mental health with, I guess, with discernment. And, but to have that discernment takes a lot of work, and a
It
lot of
does.
people just aren't willing to do the work.
No. Because you know what though, when it comes to the work, it's being able to put in the work, right? The same idea with coaching. This analogy of, well, somebody will help me get there. No, nobody's going to help you get there. You have to get there on your own. If you rely on every single person to be your crutch and to help you out in every little thing, you can't be the best version of yourself
Right.
because you're crippling yourself, right?
Well, I put this in terms of external judgment versus internal acceptance. And if you're living for external judgment, then you're always going to be dependent on other people's opinion. But if you work on internal acceptance, then that love that you're looking for from other people and even from God and everything, you'll find within, because God is within is without. It's so within, so without. And therefore, this is something that that me and my partner talk about a lot in my podcast, is internal acceptance versus external judgment, because we both believe in sovereignty and the sovereignty of the self, and how ultimately the self must be responsible for not only its actions but also its consequences. And
Mhm.
therefore, if you're looking for external approval, you'll never find the internal acceptance that you need to be happy.
No, and that honestly it's powerful and it's so true because there is there is no outreach. That outreach is inside of every single one of us. We tend to hide behind many layers of doors that we pretend that we don't have the keys for them. But in all honesty, the keys are lying there down on the hallway on that nail that's banged into the wall, you
Right.
know? Right? It you could This is the thing too is we love using excuses as individuals and it's like stop using excuses and actually figure out what the problem is.
And ju- just in a personal way, that's why I've been in Hackensack for 50 years, because it gave me a home that I lost. I lived in Abilene till I was 10. Then I went to New York City, then New Hampshire, then Dartmouth.
Oh, New
And
Hampshire's
for
crazy.
my adolescence, for my 10 to 20 years, I basically had no home. And therefore, when I came to Hackensack and was in the program and everything, I got a sense of home. And then I got my own apartment, and I've been in it for 44 years. And, this is, you know, often, I mean, not often, but sometimes I think, well, what is the alternative? Say I never gotten taken away from Dartmouth, where would I be? Would I be in the White House? Would I be, would I be, like with 20 houses in different locations, or, whatever happened, my final conclusion is always, well, I would have ended up in Hackensack because this is where I'm happy.
Yeah. I've realized that the hard way. I'm originally from New York and I moved down here 3 years ago to take care of my mom. And every single thing that I've been doing up and towards like the past year has been having me come back to New York. And I realize that it's not just the friends and the somewhat family that I have over there. It's the fact that in my life, that's where I'm supposed to be. That's to
Right.
me, that's my home. And, we get stuck up in, and we talked about this before until the whole storm shut us down. I think he's listening. Please be careful, begging you. Um, where we become so materialistic as people, so materialistic. We want the Rolls Royce. We want the gorgeous, knockout model. We want the $1 million. We want all of these things. But where's the value in those things when it comes down to it at the end of the day? Is it giving you peace? Is it giving you love? Do you feel comfort in those things? Because when when we leave this physical body, guess what? That ain't going with you. It's not. No, nobody's driving over out to the energy of infinite with a Rolls Royce. Like, hi, other energy. This is my
Right.
car. Right?
Right.
Not happening.
Well, that's yeah, it's so I've just I've imagined basically every scenario possible, and my feeling is I've got my home, and I've got my my myself is integrated into my environment, and that's really what everybody should want to do.
Yeah.
And ultimately, you know, you can't always like know where to go or where to be and everything, but you gotta like be able to be open and just enjoy life. And oh, I know what I was going to say. So for the last week I've basically been broke. I've had like $5 for basically the last week. And I spent my last I spent my last money on three ginger ales and a half gallon of milk yesterday. So I can have milk with my Cheerios. So, but what I figured out, what the revelation I had yesterday was I don't need money. I mean, I just went to the park. I sat in the park. It was like a gorgeous day,
With the
85
ginger ale.
degrees, blue
Yeah.
sky, clouds. People would say hello, and I just like felt myself content sitting without money. And it was revelation because it really like made me I mean, officially I don't have any money till next Friday, but I have food in my apartment. I have my apartment. I got my shelter. I got nothing, like hanging over me that's going to like cost me money and everything. And I'm just like, okay, fine. I don't have money. It's not necessary because the inner satisfaction I have with the beauty of life is so much more overwhelming than anything that like $100 could buy that I could use.
Oh yeah. I mean, and that's something that you learn the hard way is where money's not everything. Money can help you towards certain things as a tool, but if you rely on money being every single part of your life, you'll never be able to really enjoy what life can offer because, like you put it, there are many things that you can do in life that do not rely about money. You ever heard of sitting on a park bench or taking a walk or meeting a bunch of friends and, I don't know, just hanging out and just enjoying life for what it is? You know, it's
Or
nice
doing podcasts.
or doing podcasts, yeah, on a Sunday. Oh, um but yeah, it really just boils down to, and I think this is something that you've really pointed out towards. It's something that you've worked towards your whole life is being you, being the most best version of yourself, regardless of where you are, what you have, who you want it to be. you get to live the most authentic and most valuable point of your life. And that shows, that showcases in every single person. Because guess what? I could sit here right across from somebody and I could tell if somebody's being a faker. I don't know why. Like, it's one of my abilities or something. Maybe it has to do with podcasting. But when somebody's really genuine and open and kind and compassionate and really has something that they've worked towards, you can feel it. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes the energy. You got to put in the work if you want to get there. Plain and simple.
Right.
You can't use money to do that. You can't buy your way to get there. Let's point that out.
Well, ultimately, everybody finds their own meaning and their own purpose and their own satisfaction in life. And if you don't, uh, then some either you got to change yourself or you got to change your environment. And then but oh, my doctor called my illness for 7 years before I found out my official diagnosis was schizophrenic, was a paranoid schizophrenic schizoaffective. Before I found that out, he called my illness psychotic bliss. And I always said, how can bliss be psychotic? And the answer was because I would get I would get on such a high vibration, a blissful vibration, just naturally, that everybody else in the program would get freaked out. They couldn't understand. They couldn't understand, and therefore I'd be put in the hospital because he couldn't put the whole program in the hospital. So I
Mhm.
was like the linchpin that was like causing the problems. So,
Oh
uh,
no.
but that that's that's outer judgment is supposed to inner acceptance, and
Right.
I meant that's why I meant I in fact the last 6 times I went to the hospital. I was in the when I was in the program. I was in the hospital 9 times. Last time, 6 times I went to the hospital. I put myself in the hospital because I knew I was psychotic.
You sometimes have to get to that place, sometimes where you realize that you can't always handle everything on your own two shoulders. Sometimes you have to be able to reach out and get the help that you need. And it doesn't
Right.
make you a bad person or a crazy person. It just means that, like we said this before we got cut off, we're human beings. We all come with different things in our life. It doesn't make you less of a person just because you have to deal with a heavier package. But if there's help and if you need that, that's what it's there for, you know?
Right.
If it's 15 times, let it be 15 times. Fucking A, let it be 38 times, you know? Doesn't make you any less of a person.
Right.
Yeah. Um One thing that I did want to touch on, Dale, because we talked about this a little bit before. I know that you have a coaching or mentorship program that you do, which is live. Is it Love Live or Live
Live
Love?
love. Live
Live
love.
Love. And you recently also started doing a podcast, which I think is amazing. Congrats. Um, Tell me a little bit about like your coaching program, also your podcasting. Where can these people like find your work if they wanted to reach
Well,
out?
well, actually, I'm sort of like at a dead end about how to contact me right now. I just started a new. I just set up a new email at dew author author 25 at gmail.com. And but not only do I have my coaching program, which I described, it's a 3 month, nine Zoom one-on-one program for basically $997. And we go through the live love letters. That's the process. Learn, integrate, validate, explore, listen, open, value, and express. So and then we have like a summary issue at the, summary session at the end. So that's 9 sessions over 3 months. And then we haven't mentioned this, but I have 6 novels, 1 memoir, and 5,000 poems in my archive. I
Jeez.
I uh, I I basically wrote 6 novels before I graduated from college in 1985, and then I turned to poetry. And since 1985, I've written more than 5,000 poems, which I have. So
A
that's
lot.
that, and I have 5 books, 5 poetry collections on Amazon under the name D.E. Walsh. So if people want to like check out my poetry, go to Amazon, put in D Poetry by D. Walsh, and they should come. They aren't like big sellers, so you might have to like scroll through and find them.
I'll,
But
I'll 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 put a link in the description for this episode. Just make it a little bit easier for people to find your poetry and your work.
right,
So that way, let people like, I can't find it. There's a link below in the description, people. You want to find it? You want to find Dale's work? I'll make your life easier.
I appreciate that. And
Of course.
and then let me and then my social media is I'm at TikTok at Lord Do God, LORDEWGOD. So that's my TikTok. And then on Instagram I'm at Dale DALE Walsh WALSH.14. And that's about it, I think. But I would suggest that if you want to really get in touch with me, you try the doauthor25@gmail.com. And I do also have like a what I call my bestseller for the 20th century, which is a novel called Velvet Velour's Follies Book 2, or The Flight of Dialina, which is my spaceship. And that's a apocalyptic romance in the shadow of the 20th century Cold War. So that's
Got a
my
collection.
novel, and I'm basically trying to figure out how to get that circulated as a way of like getting my name as a literary figure known.
Love it. And your podcast? Are you currently got
Oh,
your
it's
podcast?
DW Andrew ANDREW Conspiracy, and it's on YouTube and all podcast platforms.
And you said you have like 11 episodes out there? Pretty
Correct.
impressive. Well, if anybody ever told you, Dale, that you couldn't accomplish, I think you proved them wrong. 50 times fold.
Well, I appreciate you having me on, Dave, and thanks for the appreciation.
Of course, my pleasure. And to anybody out there, if you want to check out more of the podcast, you can find us at Lawson's Pod, everywhere you can read this podcast. With that, catch you next week. All right, peace out.
Peace out.